Take yourself back to the 9th of January 2007. Nintendo isn't really doing anything special on this specific date in particular, but they are starting to make a nice bit of money from the Nintendo DS, first launched in late 2004. They've really been pushing it as a device for casual gamers, and it seems to be hitting its stride. In fact, Nintendo finds itself in a rather good place in general, after failing to compete with Microsoft and Sony in previous hardware generations. Their relatively new Wii has had a successful launch, and it's quickly becoming a household staple. Again, largely thanks to its casual appeal. Elsewhere, though, on this day in January, something important is happening in San Francisco. One Steve Jobs is getting up on stage at the Macworld Expo to deliver the keynote address. I'm sure you know what happens next.
An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator, all in one device. Steve Jobs, in this legendary presentation, goes on to showcase all of these groundbreaking features of the iPhone, which we now take for granted. Curiously though, not the App Store. In fact, third-party apps weren't even part of Apple's vision for the iPhone. It released with no store in sight. But third-party developers complained, so Apple produced a software development kit, and on July 10th, 2008, the App Store was launched. I'm not sure Apple or Nintendo really understood at this point the significance of this moment, the launch of the App Store. After all, it wasn't part of Apple's plan, and Nintendo is riding high doing this. Throughout the rest of 2008, the Wii and DS will both independently sell more than the Xbox 360 and PS3 combined. The iPhone sells a comparable amount of units, over 10 million, but that's just a drop in the ocean for the mobile phone market. Smartphones and game consoles are two entirely different markets, right? On December 11th, 2009, Angry Birds is released, and it takes the world by storm. One of the great things about smartphone games, for developers and for consumers, is their pricing model. You can sell an app for $1.99 if you want to, or you can give it away for free and monetize it through in-game ads. Nintendo has big games, expensive games. They've always seen their products as a premium. It's what separates them from the competition and what allowed them to resuscitate the video game industry when it crashed in the 80s. One other crucial thing about Nintendo is that the company is notoriously tone deaf. Inventive, but tone deaf, and they make some truly baffling decisions. It's in large part why, as I mentioned before, they failed to compete for years before the Wii released. This mentality of don't listen to anyone else and just steamroll on is perhaps their greatest asset. Who else would have dared to release the Wii? Yet, it's also a curse, and Nintendo is in a pickle now. They've sacrificed the hardcore gaming market to Microsoft and Sony in favour of casual gamers who are now flocking to smartphones and tablets. I mean, why wouldn't they? All these great free games are coming out on this device which they already own. The Wii and DS have now peaked, and a new hardware generation is rolling around. Who does Nintendo try to please, and how? Take yourself back to June 15th, 2010. Last week, Apple announced the new iPhone 4 with a 960 by 640 pixel display. This is hot off the trail of the release of the iPad. Elsewhere though, on this day in June, something arguably less important is happening in Los Angeles. Reggie Fils-Aimé, then president of Nintendo of America, is getting up on stage at E3 2010. He's about to deliver the company's press conference. New hardware is going to be revealed. Nintendo's answer to their competition.
3D Play on Nintendo 3DS is on the way.
Satoru Iwata, Nintendo's CEO, goes on to tell us more. The 3DS has a stereoscopic 3D display at a fraction of the resolution of the average smartphone or tablet. It has two camera lenses that allow it to take 3D photos that look like this. The 3DS flops at launch really hard. I mean, it's not difficult to see why. The launch lineup doesn't really entice the hardcore gamer, or anyone really. Nintendo is stuck in a kind of purgatory. There is, of course, an easy out. something that will appease their investors, and something that just makes a lot of sense. Start making mobile games. The company, even though they're floundering, have all of this immensely valuable intellectual property. It seems like the logical thing to do. Of course, the logical thing is not the thing Nintendo usually decides to do. June 7th, 2011. The iPad 2 released a few months ago. This is actually the first tablet I had. In LA, once again, Reggie gets up onto the stage and in a historic moment announces the Wii U.
Welcome to the world of Wii U.
It's a failure in just about every sense of the word, and goes on to become Nintendo's worst-selling home console, a far cry from the Wii. Nintendo's shares plunge. All they need to do is quit with the hardware and start making mobile games. In 2014, Iwata takes a 50% pay cut, and he isn't the only executive to sacrifice his salary. Nintendo cannot suffer another 3DS or Wii U. So they finally decide to bite the bullet. They're going to make mobile games. We're now in early 2015, and this is quite historic because throughout their history of making video games, Nintendo has been adamant that you experience Nintendo games on Nintendo hardware. You play by their rules, or you don't get your fill of Mario. Now it seems like Mario's going to set up shop right in between Subway Surfers and Crossy Road. Investors are delighted, but for Nintendo, this is not the ushering in of a new era. This is a shameful defeat. I do not like to use the term free-to-play. I've come to realize that there is a degree of insincerity to consumers with this terminology. You can see that Nintendo at this point looks down on mobile games. If we fail to make efforts to maintain the value of our content, there is the high possibility for the value to be greatly reduced. Nintendo enters the smartphone business with one foot out the door. They see the mobile game as something inferior, something less pure than their products. I don't know the extent to which I agree with that. But regardless, the company sees this new business venture as a means to an end, hoping to siphon customers from the smartphone back into their own Nintendo hardware. This whole thing is an interesting battle to me, because not once does Apple or Samsung say, "We're coming for you, Nintendo." It's a catchy title, but this isn't wholly Nintendo's war with the smartphone. This is Nintendo grappling with their own existence and struggling to justify it. So, how do things go? Well, for one, Pokemon Go comes out, which is, needless to say, a massive success. Pokemon isn't actually entirely owned by Nintendo though, like Mario or Zelda. They share it with two other companies. Nintendo's main mobile output is fine, but it's not groundbreaking. There's a sense of a lack of commitment. That's because something else has been brewing at the company. Prior to Satoru Iwata sadly passing on July 11th, 2015, he and a number of other top Nintendo executives, including Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto, sit down and formulate a comeback strategy, a way for them to win this war, or recuperate their losses depending on which way you want to look at it. Mobile games are just one element of this plan. There is, against all odds, new hardware on the horizon for Nintendo. Whatever it is, it really needs to be more of an iPhone reveal moment and less of this, or God forbid, this. The Nintendo Switch is revealed on October 20th, 2016. Not at E3, this time there's no press conference or anything like that. A trailer is released, showcasing some games and how the new device is both a handheld and a home console. In contrast to the Wii U, which seemed to please nobody, this makes just about everyone happy. Sales figures go on to show that. Remember when Nintendo was riding high on top of the Wii? Well, the Switch outsells it. Nintendo quietly phases out the mobile games. As of the recording of this video, their last release was Pikmin Bloom in 2021. The games that are still online are all powered by that freemium model the company denounced, but it seems like these games are in their death throes. So, who won the war? I was fortunate enough to have an iPad, a Wii U, and a 3DS growing up. I was too young to really perceive that Nintendo were in dire straits. I knew I liked Mario and I knew I liked Angry Birds. I imagine that I'll continue to be a Nintendo and Apple loyalist until the day that I die, so perhaps I'm not the person who should be trying to answer this question. Give it a few years, a few decades, and it'll be Apple's turn to face some existential threat, just like Nintendo did back in the days of the Wii, seemingly too big to fail. And we should look forward to that day. That day when someone gets up on some stage at some expo somewhere to reveal a product that will change our lives all over again. Thank you for listening.